Welcome back. Just as a recap, in the last three episodes, I told you what the game is, what changed and what can change, and then the engine that I picked. What I haven't told you is why any of it matters. So it's a pretty simple answer, to be honest. One is I really enjoy the genre Metroidvania. It's my favorite game genre, and I wanted to build one. And then I've also always loved the games where you could shapeshift or where you played as an animal. And I wanted to include that. And then I grew up on Percy Jackson as my inspiration for Greek mythology. Um, and so that's it. That's the starting point. A Metroidvania where shapeshifting is the core identity, set in a world where mythology is real and magic is how you fight. Because magic is cool, a sword is boring. And but liking those things isn't a game. Uh, the game it happened when I started asking, what does it mean to build shapeshifting into the core of a Metroidvania? Not as a power up, you get in hour 6 as the but as the theme the entire game is built around. And that question shaped everything. The world, the combat, the structure. This episode is about the answers. So, why this world? Um, so Percy Jackson showed mythology isn't just old stories like all of us might think. It's characters with human motivations, pettiness, grief, jealousy, love, gods who act like people with too much power. And I wanted that world, one where mythology is alive and it's not just an aesthetic skin on a fantasy game. And that led to Hecate. Not because she's the most famous goddess, although she's pretty famous if you've heard of her if you've heard of Macbeth. But the reason I chose her is because her domains fit the game and the genre really well. Crossroads branching is a branching world. Her keys and doorways domain, unlocking new areas. Triple form representation, shapeshifting. Liminal spaces with labyrinths between realms. And then Torchbearer lighting the way through darkness. I didn't pick Hecate and figure out how to make her fit. I realized her domains already described the game I wanted to make. And then why the villains have real grievances. I don't enjoy the games where you don't really learn much about the enemies. They're just the bad guys. The ones where there's a rich story as to why they are who they are and why they do what they do is is what I enjoy most. Um, and they make for some of the funnest games to play. And so with that, I have Keto, where her children were labeled as monsters, so mortals could call themselves heroes for killing them. And it's every famous Greek hero's resume includes one of her children. And then Lelantos, with his name literally meaning the untouched. A titan that wasn't punished after the titanomancy because no one remembered he existed. So his sister's children became Artemis and Apollo, and he became nothing. And then Melinoe, she has divine parents and no recognition, powerful but invisible. And so, as I've said before, their grievances are real, their response is disproportionate, but the wrong was genuine, and you're not clearly on the right side, you're on your own side. And then um, the fact that in my game violence has weight, I'm following, Greek tragedies. They're the most common thing. One of the more common themes in Greek myth is the fact that there's a lot of tragedy. And so there's no moral choices. Your actions are fixed. And the moral complexity in my game is going to come through the framing, where the game makes you uncomfortable with what you have to do. And it's like the first boss is a grieving lion cub whose parent was killed by the same force that destroyed your village, and you scar its face, causing it to flee. And you don't learn that until after you have fought it. And then the first true story boss is that of a scared researcher that doesn't want to fight. And he dies reaching for a door he could never open. And you learn his name from a scroll at his desk after you have killed him. And this is the Greek tragedy model. Moral complexity imposed on characters who can't escape it, not a moral choice offered to characters who can. And then moving on to tone, I didn't want to do like Hollow Knight where it's quite quiet. I didn't want to be bleak like a Souls game. I didn't want to be as grim as Blasphemous or as sacrilegious, to be honest. But I really liked the tone that Nine Souls has, where it's dark but purposeful. Darkness has reasons and hope exists, but the hope has to be earned. And it's every piece of darkness in this game serves the story. If removing it wouldn't change anything, it's gratuitous and it's going to get cut. Okay. Why this combat? So these are what my different influences have taught me about feel. So in Hollow Knight, it's taught me how the nail swing and the soul from combat resource loop really flows well, where you have to fight to earn the resources you need to survive. Nine Souls, parrying is a central mechanic. So you reward precision from the get-go, and it's not a side option. It's essential to Nine Souls that you have to learn how to parry. Blasphemous. In Blasphemous, every attack is commit. You've committed to it. You have to swing. If you swing, you have to hold to it. And then Blasphemous 2, adding a fallback dodge option alongside parrying when you're first learning the game. So these games have taught me what combat feels like when it's done right, but the shapeshifting is what's going to make this game different from any of them. So I mentioned that the combat's deliberate and committed. So a lot of action games let you mash your way through attacks. In this one, every time you press a button, it's a decision you can regret. If you carry your attack combo through as the player into the third swing and you get hit, well, you got hit because you got greedy. So attacks lock you in. If you swing, you can't cancel. And every attack is a bet. The enemy won't punish you during the commitment. And so this isn't just making it difficult to be difficult. It's about making combat meaningful. And if you can just mash your way through it, it doesn't matter as much. And so why parrying is the central defense mechanic for the human form. Dodging is a panic button. If you press it, you're safe. Parrying is something that requires you to read the enemy and stand your ground and time your response. And so that's why there's a gradient where if you time it properly, you get a full parry. You take no damage and you stagger the enemy and you get bonus mana. If you timed it incorrectly, but not by much, you take reduced damage and gain some mana. And if you miss it, you take full damage and there's recovery frames after you've pressed parry. So it's a skill window, and it's not just I parried and it's not just pass or fail, it's a ramp. And so the game is going to reward standing your ground, and then running away might keep you alive, but it doesn't generate the resources to stay alive. And then pulling from Hollow Knight with the mana from combat, where it's soul from combat in Hollow Knight, but I'm doing mana from combat. So you have to hit enemies to earn mana. You have to spend mana to heal. And then it's going to be 5 to 6 hits to gain one heal. And then if you do 2 to 3 parries, you get the same amount though. And then healing is a 1-second channel like Hollow Knight Silksong. So you press it and you're stuck for an entire second, and it's interruptible. So you have to choose when to heal wisely. If you choose wrong, you get hurt, you lose your mana, and you don't heal at all. So it's fight to survive, and that's the core loop of combat. And then I have the 3 forms so far, where every form obeys the same rule, where things are deliberate and committed, but things are expressed differently. So base form is all about being a parry mage. You read, you counter, stagger, and punish. The wolf is a glass cannon. You can't parry, and you can only dash. And so it's about being able to attack quickly and repositioning yourself. And then the ram is going to be about being a juggernaut. You charge to meet attacks head on. And so it's you charge, you hit an enemy, dealing damage, and you charge again. And if you do it right, like with the parry, no damage. So, but there's things where it's like the wolf can't attack up, the ram doesn't stagger on its charge, and the base form can't dash. So every limitation forces you to switch forms, and so that's what makes shapeshifting core and not cosmetic. And so that's also why form shifting is vulnerable. It's a brief animation with no iframes, so you can get hit. And so you have to find a safe window to shift. Same way you have to find safe windows to heal. And now on to a bit about the structure of my game. So one of the things with my game is that in early access, I plan on having every release for public playtesting and yeah, just early access is going to be complete at every size. So there is an ending to the story with every release. It's not necessarily the greatest ending, but it is unending. And so if the game only truly feels complete at 1.0, because with early, it means in early access, it means everyone who was playing during early access had a worse experience with the game because it was incomplete. But if every release is complete, it's a lot nicer for the player because they're not just ending on this annoying cliffhanger. And so each biome in my game is going to have a local story that resolves within it and reveals a piece of the central mystery. And any stopping point is a valid ending. And then it's like the MVP is technically a complete game with an hour to 3 hours of complete gameplay. And so it's technically not a demo or a prologue, even though that's what I'm calling it. And so every update's gonna add a biome, not a chapter, because a chapter implies incompleteness. A biome implies expansion. And then we get onto the layered mystery, where my game has 8 layers of revelation, where layer 1 is my village was attacked and I have powers, and every layer builds on that. I'm not going to say anything more to keep the mystery there, but a player who stops at layer 2 has a coherent picture of things. And then, but a player who's at layer 8 has merely a richer picture rather than a corrected one. So, and then just something I have an intent to do is this Pantheon toggle, so you can post the 1.0 release with the DLC. You can opt out of it if the mythology is that I have implemented is part of your living religion. So players get to decide what they engage with, and if they disable it, that content just is gone. And so you don't have to play something that might be sacrilegious for you beyond Greco-Roman, because it's Greco-Roman's just core to the game. And so that's why my game exists, with it being a Metroidvania built around shapeshifting and set in mythology that's alive and with combat where every decision matters. So next episode, it could potentially be that I have something up and running. I will make no promises. I have started development, but no promises. I just wanted to explain why before I started showing gameplay, or I should say prototyping gameplay. Yeah. Thanks for watching. Bye.